Perhaps never before in the history of the world has there been the single moment that was so close to an Uno reverse card. In 1941, the Imperial Japanese Air Force bombed the Pearl Harbor base in Hawaii and destroyed many of the Navy's ships that the United States had. One of the few ships they deemed not to be worth enough to waste bombs on were the aircraft carriers. Since the United States had few other choices, they started using aircraft carriers much more frequently. It was a few days later, as the United States declared a war on Japan and Nazi Germany, that the biggest group of aircraft carriers got together. Nothing that has ever been done even came close to the power that these 6 aircraft carriers possessed together. Needless to say, it changed the course of the war and by proxy, the course of history. So, let's dive deep and learn more about these marvels of engineering. Get comfortable, relax, and pay attention. So, what are aircraft carriers anyway? Well, there isn't any proper definition. As the name suggests, for a ship to be classified as an aircraft carrier, it must be large enough to support at least one aircraft. It can be both a normal fighter jet, a helicopter, and anything in between. There are 11 basic types of aircraft carriers. Aircraft cruiser is the one you think of when you think about aircraft carriers in general. Since the main point of building an aircraft carrier is to carry and help aircrafts take flight, they are one of the largest warships in the world. Speed and versatility are the 2 other main features of a good aircraft carrier. Aside from being moving air bases, aircraft carriers also serve a very important role: power projection. As the famous saying goes, the greatest weapon is the one which you don't have to fire. Even if these aircraft carriers don't do anything in terms of providing aid in war, the sheer fact that they exist makes them a powerful way for a nation to show potential enemies what they have to go against if they try something inappropriate. Many times in the past, the United States used just the movement of their aircraft carriers to settle down rising conflicts. For example, during the 2008 Russian invasion of Georgia, it was USA's aircraft carrier approaching the Bosphorus Strait that helped them to stop this quickly escalating war. One of the warships escorting the carrier even went into the Black Sea and to the Georgian coast to help the power projection. This is one of many examples when the United States used its weapons successfully without ever firing a single shot. To get more in depth into how these bad boys work, let's dissect their inner workings. The very first question you will have when thinking about a giant-ass aircraft carrier is, how the hell does it have power? At one time, the basic aircraft carrier is capable of operating for about a year without stopping for any supplies. So is it solar panels that fuel this monster, or a traditional coal furnace? Of course, it's neither. Most aircraft carriers are based on a nuclear power plant. A small compact nuclear fusion machine with just 100 grams of uranium can power the carrier for more than 1 year without the need to refuel. This is probably also a good place to mention that one of these aircraft carriers costs close to $1 billion. As for the cost of building one of these varies a lot, and I mean a lot. For example, the cheapest aircraft carrier costs around $700 million and it is used by the Army of India. And one of the most expensive ones was made by the United States. And the cost? $13.5 billion. Surely there's a lot of difference between these 2 aircraft carriers. You could literally make almost 20 Indian carriers with the price of one United States carrier. But one might be 100 times more powerful than the other one. Out of 180 countries around the world, only 8 of them operate traditional aircraft carriers, and 6 other countries operate helicopter carriers, which are significantly cheaper and less capable for obvious reasons. In the modern day, there are 4 categories of aircraft carriers. Let's discuss each one of them one by one. First, we have catapult-assisted, takeoff, barrier-arrested recovery, or STOBAR type of aircraft carrier. Generally speaking, these bad boys are the biggest, heaviest, and can carry the most amount of armed fighter jets. All of STOBAR carriers that are still in service are powered by nuclear energy. There are a total of 12 STOBAR carriers in service around the world. Then, we have short takeoff barrier-arrested recovery, or STOBAR type of aircraft carriers that is quite a bit smaller than the last one. This means that it can support a smaller number of lighter fighter jets, but as a result, it gains speed that could be crucial in certain situations. What STOBAR specializes in is more defending the fleet and gaining air superiority than power projection and bombardment. China has 2, India and Russia each have 1 STOBAR carrier. Funnily enough, The United States doesn't have this type of aircraft carrier that I find a bit funny. Up next, we have the short takeoff vertical landing, or STOVL. It's even smaller than the STOBAR type carriers. Because of the small size, it is less fuel efficient, slower, and has less capability for supporting aircraft. The United States has 9 of these bad boys. The United Kingdom has 2 of them, and they are the largest ship to ever be built for the Royal Navy. Considering that at one point the UK ruled more than 25% of the world using their legendary navy, hearing that fact is quite intriguing. Italy also has 2, and Spain has 1. Thailand also has 1 STOVL type carrier, but it is used as a helicopter carrier rather than using it as a normal one. Speaking of which, last and definitely the least powerful type of aircraft carrier is the helicopter carrier. It sadly doesn't have a cool name, it's just a helicopter carrier. As the name suggests, helicopter carriers can only operate helicopters. There are 16 of these swimming around the world. After that, there is a fleet carrier that is intended to operate with the main fleet and usually provides an offensive capability. Aside from the normal aircraft carriers that we just discussed, there's also what's called a super carrier. The United States spent a huge amount of money to develop these badasses. They are so big, heavy, and have a very big layer of armor. They're fast and can go up to 35 miles an hour, which is pretty quick in terms of naval movement. The United States supercarriers are all equipped with both active and passive defenses. It can easily defend missiles and submarines. Each of the supercarriers has high-end sensors, heat-seeking and radar-guided missiles, and Gatling guns. The supercarrier's sensors and weapons are combined through its high-end command center for more coordination during the action. There are very few things that can sink any type of aircraft carrier. The supercarrier is much harder to sink. The one Nimitz-class aircraft carrier can be fueled once, and it'll not require any refueling for 20 years. That is 2 decades. That's more time than most people watching this video have even lived. This one really fun fact needs to be said right here because I didn't find any good place to put it on. So Brazil has an aircraft carrier, and one time they tried to sell it on eBay. Take that, Jeff Bezos. There are only 2 countries that possess supercarriers. One of them is the obvious candidate, the United States, and the second one is France, which is kinda weird because when you think of global superpowers, you don't really think about France. But at least now you know that baguette people can kick a lot of ass. What do you think could sink an aircraft carrier? If I was to guess, the only thing I can think of that can sink even the supercarriers is a tactical nuke. A tactical nuke is designed to be used on a battlefield in military situations, mostly with friendly forces in proximity, and perhaps even on contested friendly territory. The more you know. Do consider subscribing and slapping that like button like you'd slap that thick supercarrier. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll meet in the next one, and until then, have a beautiful day.